What's happening, guys? Welcome back to another video. Today is a little bit different. I've had a client ask me, I'm shooting their wedding in about a month, and they've asked me to shoot some film at their wedding. It's not something I usually do these days because I find most people don't understand it or appreciate it or whatever, so there's just really not much point. So we're going to do a part series where I'm going to talk about all the things to do with film. So we're going to go through the cameras that you can get, we're going to go through the film that you can buy these days, how to process it, which one to choose. We're just going to go through everything. We're going to develop it, we're going to show you how to do that. Let's just run through it and we'll see where it goes. If you guys don't know, pretty much all of my videos are unscripted on YouTube, so we're just going to wing it and see what happens. But anyways, let's just jump into it. So for this wedding, I've decided to use my Nikon F3. This is a high point one, which means it has the viewfinder is slightly different and it's better for people that wear glasses. So first thing I'm going to do is talk about the camera. Now, there's a lot of different film cameras out there. The cheaper ones are usually manual focus, like you can buy an F100 or an F6 or something like that. This one is manual focus. It does have aperture priority. As you can see here, the little A is for auto shutter speed, and you've got exposure compensation over here on a dial. A few things to watch out for when you're buying a film camera. The first would be the seals. So if you open up, we pull back this little hatch here and pop the door. As you open it up, you can see there's seals along here. They're kind of like foam rubber seals that stop light leaks getting in. So when you're looking at a camera, this is something you're gonna really want to check. You know, if the seals, you can see if they're all raggedy. This one's been redone, so the seals are really tidy. And just make sure there's no like fungus or anything on the camera, on the shutter or anything like that. But generally that's the main thing you want to look out for. You can check this pressure plate. This is what holds the film against the plane. Check that, just make sure it's not all scratched up and stuff like that. But this is a really tidy example of an F3, and I've had it for quite a while. I just don't use it a lot. So this is a fully manual focus camera. The only thing it does automatically is aperture priority. The lens I have on here is a 35mm f2. Super cheap. I think I got this whole camera for like 400 or something with the lens in this condition. So I did get a bit of a deal, but it's still, you know, they're not too expensive. So this one, you've got the aperture control on the lens here, and just manual focus, just like a normal camera. The only thing you're going to have to watch out for, like I said, is the seals, and just make sure there's no fungus inside the lens. Cameras this age, it can be quite common to get fungus inside the lenses. And just, you know, just go over it, check it like a normal SLR. It should be pretty obvious if there's something sticking out. So this lens is super clean, there's nothing inside it. So firstly, we're going to go through film before we show you how to load it. Now there's quite a few different films that you can get these days, and the thing you've got to remember is you're buying film for different ISO ratings, or in film situations usually they call it ASA. So anyway, it's just the film speed. Now there's two types of black and white film. You can get this one, which is a Ilford 400 Delta, that's really nice, and then you've got an HP5. They all kind of have different grain structures and things like that, but you know, 400 is 400 and 800 is 800. So here's some color. This is Portra 800. Still got the price tag on there. It's not too cheap. It's $24 New Zealand. That's New Zealand dollars. But yeah, generally speaking, just color and black and white. So the two main types of film is C41 and then black and white. You also have slide film, which is a little bit less common these days, but it's much more colorful and punchy than C41 film usually. There's some standard films to stick to. It's all subjective, so really I would just recommend like maybe buying one of each if you want to have a play around with it, depending on your budget, and just see which one you like the best. So you can buy a C41 film color, but it's black and white. So all that does is allow you to process it in multiple labs. So most of the Kodak stores across New Zealand, and just, you know, any of the small camera shops that develop film can do any kind of C41. So if you want to shoot black and white, but you don't want to pay to get proper black and white developed, or you don't want to do it at home, which is super easy by the way, we're going to go over that soon, get a C41 black and white. So here's some of the films I've got. These are just ones that I've had lying around for a while. I'm not sure. One thing you want to check if they're expired. So see, this one is January 2021 it expires. These all seem to be okay. Yeah, 05 2019. So anyways, these are just some of the different ones I have. So I've got HP5. This is a 400 speed black and white film. This is probably what I use most of the time if I'm not using Kodak Tri-X, which is another 400 ISO film. And then I have a Delta 400, which I've been just testing out. Maybe we'll shoot that today. And then I've got some Pan F, which is a 50 ASA or ISO film. That's like a really clean, fine grain. So obviously it's just like digital. The higher the ISO speed, the grainier the images. Another one I've got here is, this is Portra 400. So Portra is a massively common film for like weddings and portraits. You know, it just has a really nice clean look to it. You can overexpose it by quite a lot and get a really nice soft, dreamy image that a lot of people go for. Then I've got some medium format film here. I don't actually have a medium format camera anymore, but this is Ektar. So Ektar 100 is a C41 film, but it's really nice and colorful and punchy. So it's probably the closest you can get to a slide film in a C41 process. So that's a few different types of films here. Obviously I don't have the whole lot. There's a whole bunch to go through, and you know, just jump in and try them out. Just pick the right speed you want. Now 400 speed is a really good one for just sort of general purpose, outdoor, indoor. You just have to be careful that your shutter speed doesn't drop too low in indoor situations. And outdoors you might have to stop your lens down a little bit. Another thing you can do is use 400 film and push it. Now pushing is when you shoot a 400 film but you set your meter in your camera to say 800, and then when it gets developed you process it as an 800 ISO film, and it just, you can get a little bit more range or different grain, and it just looks kind of different. So that's something extra you can do, and I may get into that. It gets a little bit technical. Maybe I'll do a separate one on that. So a really common thing people do with Portra 400 is set your meter to 100 ISO. Technically you're overexposing the shot, and then you just process it per normal as 400, but you get a nice dreamy feel to it, and it just looks really nice. Here's a couple of photos shot on Portra 400 with the meter set to 100. So as you can see, they're nice and dreamy, and they just have a real light feel to them. So one thing to remember with film is it's kind of opposite to digital. With digital cameras you can really pull back the shadows if you underexpose quite a lot, where sometimes you can't recover highlights as much. Film is kind of the opposite. It can be quite tricky to recover shadows, but highlights you can push film to extreme limits. So you can overexpose, like Portra for example, like 3-4 stops even, and still get really nice cloud detail. So just remember it's kind of opposite to digital. So now I'm going to jump into the back of the camera, and I'm going to show you guys how to load a film. We're going to go right back to the easy steps here. So if you have a look at this camera, there's a little toggle here that you can push, and then this piece here pops up, and then you just pop it all the way and it pops the back here. So let's go with HP5. We're going to load a roll of HP5 into this puppy. The reason I shoot black and white a lot is because I can develop it at home. You can develop color at home, but it's much trickier and a little bit more expensive. And I really like the look of black and white film. So here's the tongue that comes out on the camera. If you know it hasn't been shot if the tongue's still sticking out here. One thing I do is just fold this end over like that to give it a little bit, I've done a little bit crooked there, to give it a little bit of a hook when you're loading it into the camera. So as you can see, that's the little tongue here. We're going to pop that out, and it goes in upside down. Pop the lock down into it, and then we're just going to drag it out all the way along. And if you have a look in here, there's little slots inside the reel, and then we're just going to start winding it like so. Now we're just going to keep shooting it until the meter gets to 0. So one more. Now you can probably see on your camera that the shutter count should be to 0, 1, or whatever you've set it to. Now this one was a 36 shot, so we have 36 shots to go over. So now that the film is installed into the camera, we've reeled it on. The one thing you want to check is that when you move the shutter here, I'm wasting a shot, when you move the film lever, that this one turns. So that's a good indication that your film is properly loaded and you're all good to go. One thing you really have to remember with film, which I forget fairly often, is to set your ISO rating on your camera. So this just changes the meter in your camera. So see here, I've set it to 400. If I was using 800 ISO film, then I'd set it to 800 and just go from there. So this just sets your meter to what film, because obviously the camera can't tell what film you've put in it. Another thing you'll notice most cameras have a back like this, and if you didn't know, what that's for is for ripping off this, and you can slide it down inside there just so you know what film is in your camera, so when you take it out you know what to how to develop it and all that sort of stuff. Sometimes if I'm pushing the film, I'll write on there, say I pushed it from 200, or sorry, say I pushed it to 800 or something like that. I'll just write it on there so I know when I'm developing at home what I've shot the film at. So there you have it, guys. We have a camera all loaded with film ready to go. So next step is going to be going to take some photos. Now this is just like any other camera. There's not really any technique other than you can remember if you go a bit dark then it can be hard to recover. So think about opposite. If anything, you want to go a little bit brighter than normal and just experiment, take some photos. The trickiest thing for me with this camera at least is manual focus. I've sort of lost the manual focus skill a little bit, but you know, just practice. Every camera has a different sort of metering system and different focusing system, so just practice, go out there and take some photos. Your first roll may come out, it may not, but just do it with something that's not so important so you can get used to the camera. So now we've got the film all loaded up in the camera, we're ready to go and take some photos. I'm just waiting for my Ethan to come around, then we're going to go out to the beach and do some location scouting out west. So we'll shoot a roll of film there, then we'll come back and get into the developing process. We'll see you soon. Where are we off to, man?
Gonna go explore in this little thing.
This thing's a beast.
1991 Subaru Justy. Oh, easily one of the coolest. 900 cc's of awesomeness, a max speed of 105 k's per hour. That's on a good day, going downhill with the wind in the right direction.
I can't even hold the camera because it's so small.
Check this out.
Oh,
damn!
This is safety 101 here. How do I get out of it? I can't get out of Ethan's car. Oh, hey Ron. Then you go left from here. What's that?
It's Fuji. X100i.
I feel glorious.
Working angles. Photography is all about working angles.